Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching The Moore Show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. Now, for the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. Now, on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Jim Self. Now, Jim is the co-founder of a course in Mastering Alchemy. He is an international speaker and author. Now, Jim Self has been leading seminars and teaching healing, clairvoyance, and personal energy management courses since the early 1980s. Now, since childhood, Jim has retained a conscious awareness and an ability to record experiences within the sleep state. Now, over the last 12 years, this awareness has expanded into relationships with the Archangels, Ascended Masters, and Teachers of Light. The tools and information presented in the Mastering Alchemy program is a co-creation of these relationships. Jim Self, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin. Nice to be here.
It's beautiful to have you on. It's great to actually have you back on the show as well, because I think you joined me a number of years ago when I was doing the Moore Show initially, and it's just beautiful to have you back on. Just for those who may not know too much about yourself as well, I think we should just, have a little quick look at your background and just how you got into channeling and how you got into doing what you're doing now as well. So just very briefly, if you just tell us a bit of history on yourself and, for example, growing up, going to school and what kind of got you into channeling as well.
Well, let's say, when everybody comes into a body, you come in really relatively fully loaded. You have all of those skill sets that we call spiritual skill sets, intuition, psychic, whatever you want to call them. Things like clairvoyance, clairaudience, your ability to have access to other realms of awareness, clairsentience, the feeling other people's energy. All of those things are completely on. And then you begin to engage with the mom, dad, teacher, minister of life, and they say, do this, don't do that. This is true, this isn't true. We talk to them, we don't talk to these. And so you begin to move away from your perceptions of what's your experience and begin to accept the external world's experiences. And so as many times you get parents that say, stop making up those stories, stop lying, there's nobody sitting there at the chair that you're playing tea with. And so as a little kid, you begin to ignore or step away from. You never turn them off, you just step away from those skill sets. So in my reality, I didn't step away from those as much. I kept them on and I kind of played in life like everybody else. One of the things that happened to me, that happens to many people that are kind of watching your show, is you start to feel the world around you, and the world doesn't feel very good. You have an ability, particularly in that second chakra, for example, there's a little radar system that's constantly sending out a pulse, and it has a question attached to it. It says, what is that feeling? And so it bounces off of some there is sad, happy, your body, and basically says that person's feeling this. But when you grow up in somewhat of a uncertainty or a dysfunctional family school environment, for example, and you begin to be uncomfortable. People yell at you, people tell you, stop doing that, what's wrong with you, you're not okay, you're not attractive, you don't fit. And you begin to withdraw. And in that withdrawing, one of the things a person does is changes the question on that second chakra little sonar radar system. And the question is, what is that feeling? But we change it to, what is that feeling about me? And so all of a sudden that person who's mad, angry, upset is upset at me. Well, in real terms, they're not many times. But all of a sudden that person begins to shut down that much more. in that much more, become that much more uncertain about life around them. And in my case, I had those feelings also, but I didn't shut everything
Right.
down. So as life went on, I moved into really interesting places in life and began to realize that these skills are something that I can utilize. And so in my life journey, I've done some really what most people would call it had extraordinary events. I was an elected official, um, which would be equivalent to large cities in London and Europe,
Yes.
in San Jose, California. I was an assistant to the President of the United States. I've built corporations. I've sold corporations. And a lot of people would say, well, the answer is yes, that's all been part of a journey to get to where I am right now. And those were just events. Those weren't some egotistical, yes, I'm a very important person. They're just events. In everybody's life, we have these events, all about where are you right this minute? How are you perceiving your life right now? How are you creating for yourself? But along that journey, specifically to your question, I have had relationships with voices. That's how I guess you define them, because you don't have any real clarity that you're talking to the archangelics or the lords of light or the ascended masters or all these great beings or your higher self, and you are engaging upon this journey. So in my case, I never turned all that off. I didn't understand it, but I didn't turn it off. But over the last 15, 17, 20 years or so, those voices begin to have names like Metatron and Michael and Yeshua. And they are who I play with. These are my associates, my friends. We kind of sit at a table in the heart and talk about how do we create a better reality for humanity? How do I take my next step and explore my next opportunity? They're conversations. They're not giving up seniority. They're not better than I am. I'm not lesser than they are. We are in a communication. These are extraordinary beings of consciousness, and they're your friends.
Was there any sort of development for you in a sense when these particular names and voices came to you? I mean, was it a bit of a shock when it came to you? I mean, you talk about that it was there all the time, but when you really accept it to say this is what's coming through, were you in some sort of development circles, or were you just naturally accepting that this is okay, this is truth to me, and this feels so right, what's coming through, and this is coming with love as well?
Well, it's always your development. It's always your personal growth. And the real key to everything is being in present time, right now, because it only exists right now. And so based on right now, I'm curious about how this works. And you have a conversation, or you begin to be shown something, or you kind of step out your door and there's something that's on your doorstep. And it's like, wow, I thought about this yesterday. I see how this starts to work. So it's your own personal exploration and journey beginning to unfold. So they don't sit there from high and pronounce, here's the truth and here's where you go. It's really all about you exploring with them. In my reality, and based on the places where I got to play early on, which was all part of the staging for where I am and what I do now, is I had the capacity to have an understanding of large concepts of society, large concepts of consciousness. And when Metatron said to me, there's a journey that's never been walked before by humanity, and we believe it will help your personal ascension evolution. It will elevate the earth back into its fully stated Christed 12th dimensional state of consciousness, and it will open the door for all of humanity to step into a state of well-being. Would you like to play? The ability to answer that question, of course I'd like to play, with a sense of not overwhelmed by the question that was being posed. It's like, well, that would be cool. I don't know what that all means, how to get there, but I'm in. And so
Absolutely.
from that standpoint, then everything began to take on another aspect of the journey.
Absolutely. And just for those maybe just listening to this for the first time where they've not come across the word channeler or psychic, or, this is maybe new to them, what is the difference, would you say, in your truth now, the difference between a psychic and channeler, or is there much difference?
Well, it depends upon, in a way, your ego and how you want to perceive yourself and your own importance. There are numbers of facets of channeling. In the past, channeling, in the past, I'm going to last 50 years, but probably forever, is people do it a number of ways. What channeling used to be recognized is another being coming into your space, you stepping out of your space, the being having profound information or simple stupidity being spoken, and then you come back and everybody goes ooh and ah, and that person sometimes knows what just happened. Many times they don't even know what happened. And other times they tend to be more congruent with it. Depending on how you approach it, in terms of I must be important or this scares the hell out of me, both sides of the coin, a person will take that part of the pathway. But in real terms, where I advocate people to pay attention to channeling is it's all about you being aware of a larger awareness. And those little conversations you have in your head, many times you think they're them, and it's really another being, let's say very positively, and basically saying, gee, have you thought about turning left at this next intersection? Have you thought about going to that place and exploring? Those consciousnesses are there for your guidance and utilization. In my case, what I've come to and speak to people, this greater aspect of themselves, is there's a table in the heart, in the sanctuary of what's called the pink diamond, an aspect of tremendous love, where you gather with this level of conscious intelligence, and it's you and them. And so when I teach from this grouping of consciousness that they and I are in the same place, and I'm the one who's just kind of observing what they're showing or the pictures or consciousness that's being presented, and I interpret it. It's pretty much on the same line of thought, and I don't give up my seniority. I don't be lesser. I don't minimize myself. I don't say, oh, they're really telling me what to do. We, and I say we from not an egotistical place at all, a we from a very empowering place where when you begin to realize you are a we and you have the capacity to draw from that awareness and then speak consciously about the opportunity to uplift, to nurture, to take the next issue to the higher road of well-being, then you and that energy move through your life in a manner that really provides some pretty tremendous opportunities.
Absolutely. And are you fully conscious when you channel nowadays? And that's just the word I'm using for you to bring your group through, your team through. Do you remember what's been said?
So, yeah, the answer is yes to what you're saying. That level of consciousness where I play is an evolved consciousness. What's available and what's possible. So it's evolved to draw from what's possible and available. And you're never lesser or greater, but you are in an environment where you know what's going on all the time.
Yes, yes. And what would you say is there a common theme in the teachings that come through for people? Is there something that's really being said that's or that we haven't listened to in the past and it keeps coming through again?
No. Well, let's look at it this way. Let's say you go to work for a a business, and it's a sizable business, and producing well-being for a community. And you're on board. You're very much in supporting your community. You're very much in helping everybody attain a state of well-being. And in that large company that you're working for, there are people who do many different tasks. And everybody isn't on the same project, but everybody is going in the same direction. So from that standpoint, in my agreement, in my focus of work, it may be different than your focus of work slightly, but we're all going in the same common direction.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I so agree with you there. Would you say though that when we cross over, we all cross over with our unique point of truth? My truth may be a bit different to someone else's truth, and then someone else's truth may be a bit different to someone else's. Do you think that even where we go to, that you're not forced to change your truth? There's almost like there's infinitive levels to go to. So your truth is always expanding as as you make up a new truth, I suppose. Do you know what I mean? Is there a defining universal truths?
There are universal truths. For the most part, those of us walking around in third dimension have very little awareness of universal truths. And the reason being, although we play in universal truths with every decision we make, we're not necessarily conscious of them. And one of the reasons is most people don't live in present time. They live in linear time, meaning past, present, future, and then you die. And in your lifetime, in third dimension linear time, we have a particular set of patterns. We basically say, I hope what happened in my past doesn't happen to me in my future, or what they told me in my past is a truth, so therefore I'm going to follow it into my future. Very little time is spent in present time. And when you get into present time and you get most of the third dimension, you have present time reaction. Oh my God, that wasn't supposed to happen. You're in present time, but you're reacting to a set of truths that no longer may be true. Right. Or you are in fear of or hope of something that was created in the past, but as time moves on, change moves on, it may not be accurate anymore in your future. So people spend most of their time in the past and the future having a set of totally followed into present time. You begin to create choice. You start to find a really interesting word called paradox, meaning what was true a minute ago may not be true this minute, and what was false a minute ago may not be false this minute. And so in that context, your definition of truth is something that is constantly, and you found new truths in your life. It's very difficult to go back to old truths once you have a new truth. So in present time, if you recognize that this is what I'm aware of, this is my general belief system that I use as a moral compass, internal guidance for how I take my next step. Maybe I take the next step and realize, oh, this is a different step that I'm in than I was a minute ago. And what applied then doesn't apply here. So the word truth begins to be not so rigid. Yeah. And you begin to start to find then universal truths like something like the law of attraction. Oh, yes. Which is phenomenally useful to understand.
Yes, and we're going to get into that as well, your version of it as well, which I really do like, because I've been doing some research on you. I really do like your work as well. So okay, well look, I guess, I'm putting a channeling documentary together this year, and the one thing I see is that, different channelers have a different material in some respects, with some universal truths in there for sure, and it seems to me that people are on different wavelengths or different frequencies or vibrate differently and are attracted to a particular type of person's teachings. It's, would you say there's some truth in that, or is that how it works?
Absolutely. See, you are right where you are. And in that place, wherever you're standing, you will attract to you exactly what you are vibrating at.
Ah,
Again, law of
okay.
attraction. And so, consequently, if you are a person who believes that this is really bad and that's good and this has to be justified, you'll attract energies and people and channelers that vibrate in the same wavelength. So, understanding what you are about, what you intend, how you would like to experience your life, is what will really begin to attract to you exactly that. And the channeler or the communicator that provides the information for right where you are.
Yes, and as much as I've read quite a bit of channeled material in the past, does a lot of that past material still serve us in the present moment now? I question that sometimes. I mean, you know, I mean, I'm not calling anything to say it's bad because there's some fantastic stuff out there. But if you look at some of the teachings of Edgar Cayce, and I do channel an aspect of Cayce, it's said in such a terminology of English that it's so very difficult to kind of translate it sometimes. And it's almost like he wanted you to do the legwork yourself and not give it away. Um, that's just my take on Cayce. But what do you think of some of the old teachings?
Well, you've got to put it in perspective. See, what's the difference between Edgar Cayce and the Bible? Now, I'm not talking words. What's the difference between a belief system in ideologies that we call fundamental religions? Now, at the point that information was provided, at the point it was written down, at the point it was taught, at the point it was spoken, it was about present time. Ago. I take Edgar Cayce in particular. Edgar Cayce talked about a period of time that was coming. Edgar Cayce did not see the shift that came about in 1987. Edgar Cayce didn't see the shift into a different dimensional vibration in 1994. Edgar Cayce didn't talk about the shift in terms of the year 2000. Cayce didn't talk about the shift of consciousness in 2012. And so it wasn't that Edgar Cayce was lying or was directing you to some place that wasn't true. Edgar Cayce was speaking in the moment as to what was right there to be seen, as it does all channelers. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt there. So sometimes when change occurs, you have to say, gee, like in the United States, I see people who, in the area of a great reservoir of water, the Colorado River, huge
Yes.
river. People have built houses right on the edge. Well, nobody realized there would be a huge downsizing of the water, and their lovely home on the waterfront is now, a kilometer away from where the water is. So did somebody lie to them when they said this is beachfront property? No, it just doesn't apply today. So this word discernment is a very important word, and present time is very important because if you are still living in your hopes, you don't have the proper guidance structure to determine, is this still true for me right now?
That is so true. And just looking at the the conspiracy theory kind of realm, the ufology realm, the blue avian realm with Corey Good and all that, you have to use discernment. You really have. What feels right? I mean, and maybe these souls come down here to test us so that we can learn and we can experience discernment. I mean, rather than calling someone to say that they are not, that they're telling an untruth, how about to look at it from a different perspective to say they're perfectly aligned with what they should be doing?
Well, you are right where you are, and you believe right where you believe. Let's go back to that law of attraction.
Yes.
In my definition of law of attraction, to try to keep it as simple
Yes.
as possible, first, the law of attraction is flawless. It's one of the absolute one truths that I simply say, this is a spiritual truth without any equivocation on my part. And I say to people, do you know about the law of attraction? And everybody goes, oh yeah, I know all about it. My next question is, do you know about the law of attraction? See, because the law of attraction is flawless, and it's really clear. The universe says, I adore you. I will provide for you exactly what you are asking for. I'm not going to judge what you're asking for or choose whether it's good or bad. I will provide for you exactly what you're asking for. But see, the universe, who adores you, doesn't really understand English and French and Spanish very well. What the universe understands is how you hold your vibrations. So if you walk around believing mom, dad, teacher, minister, when they said you were bad, you were stupid, what's wrong with you, you're not attractive, you'll never succeed, you're not worth anything. If you accept that gift that they hand you and then continue to walk around for the rest of your life saying, what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me, the universe says, oh, I see that Jim woke up this morning wondering what's wrong with him again. He must love this game that he's playing. So I will provide him another reason to look at what's wrong with him. The universe understands the vibrations you hold. Unfortunately, we each hold a lot of I'm not okay stuffed in our backpack, where we made an agreement with it that said, if you never come out into the light of day, I'll never go anywhere near you again. Have you ever seen somebody and you say, how are you? And they say, oh, I'm really fine. Well, somehow I'm really fine and I'm really fine don't match. And the universe simply says, how are you vibrating? And because I adore you, I will not second guess you. I will give you exactly what you believe, think, and the habits that you use to manifest that. So here, what happens is people receive the information that supports where they're vibrating. Now, there's one more piece to this too. Right now, the world is in a state of divisions. You're looking at the world, you're looking at Brexit, you're looking at Trump in the United States, you're looking at geopolitics, world finances, you're looking at the immigration issues, and what you see is tremendous turmoil, tremendous transformation. And so we're moving from a place where we were to a state of well-being. But in transformation, there is chaos and disruption and fear. And so right now, you're beginning to create these different stratas of consciousness. And as people begin to hold on to different levels, they're going to find stratas. I don't mean that as separation. I mean that as in just different divisions of consciousness. And so being conscious of how you think and how you hold your awareness, and what is it that you really wish to experience? Having a sense of yourself in a way of making a decision requires you to be in present time. It requires you to be able to pause, to be grounded, to really say, well, here's what I think I want, and then step back and is it really what you do want?
Yes, and the perfect example of that. Well, an easy example is just, I'm doing this for the money, but is that really what you want to do just for the money? I mean, where's the happiness and love and heartfelt centeredness in all of that decision to carry you forward?
You asked me earlier about kind of my evolution.
Yes.
One of the things in my evolution that I have become very clear on is, for example, Mastering Alchemy, the business model that we use to provide the information of this journey to that living light body, which is what we teach and provide information on. But one of the things that I learned a long time ago is, in my reality, money is number 5 on my list of 3.
Right.
And people go, well, that's weird. Well, if you treat your customers like gold, you develop a product and you give more than they expect. If you are clear about uplifting and providing well-being, money comes to you. and it's not even an issue on your list. You become successful by simply understanding that people, well, you provide something that is more than they expect, and that you provide good service to people in terms of assisting them in their uplifting, and you have a good time at it in the same time. Everything else comes to you. So when you get people who are money oriented, material oriented, that's not bad. Nothing wrong with that at all. It's not necessarily in a perspective that allows the well-being to follow.
Yes.
And so how you structure what a place of quiet well-being and that level of discernment, that higher mind, that higher self is very much on your side. It's the one that says, have you thought about turning right? You might find something interesting there. And you go, okay, I'll do that.
Yes, you're talking about when you listen to that, yeah, when you listen to that higher self aspect, or those voices coming through, as you would call them, however you want to turn that loving message that's coming through. So interesting what you just said there about the money aspect, how that's number 3 or 4 on your list. That is a beautiful thing. And those people, let's say that there's people that's, someone could think of just right now that's made a lot of money. They may not be talking as we are in their heads, or expressing it the way we are, but they're using the same concept to have got to where they've got to, probably sort of conscious to them, maybe even.
Right. So there's another side to this too that you're pointing to. We really to talk about is how to discern: is that my higher self talking to me, or is that some other being? And one of the things that allows a person to answer that question is, do you know what you're all about? Do you know what you want? Because, again, that law of attraction, if I'm fearful, I'm worried, I'm scared, I have uncertainty, I don't know what I'm doing, and I believe in conspiracy theories, and I think the world's out to get me, examine your belief systems. Why am I engaged in them? And if you play in that game, understand you're very much in a third dimensional space of separation. Good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't are part of the rule structure of the third dimension. And so that structure doesn't allow a person to spend very much time in present time. Not an examination of themselves, just what would I like to do with my next footstep? How would I like to experience my day? What would I like to feel like when I get ready to go to bed tonight and look back at my day and say, how was that? I just spent a whole day. Did I enjoy myself?
Yes. Yeah, I'm kind of curious, how much are you embracing your teachings nowadays as well? Because that's kind of a hard thing sometimes. We can come out with all these wonderful, you're coming out with such wonderful stuff, but sometimes I've interviewed people where they find it difficult sometimes to embrace their own teachings. It can happen.
Well, that's a great question. In my case, so Mastering Alchemy is a course. It's a program, and it's a step-by-step program that basically says, first, we're going to recognize that you're playing in a box called the third dimension, and that box has rules and structures, as does the fourth dimension and as does the fifth dimension. So here's a piece of information to begin to discern your environment. The next thing that begins to happen is a person starts to recognize there are tools and skills that they have available that they haven't paid attention to. And so, do you know that there once was a geometric structure around the aura of the body called an octahedron? Not hard to recreate, but once you create it, you create a stability in your space rather than an uncertainty. Do you know that there's a place that if you create a point on the edge of your aura, the ability to start to discern from that point to my heart is me, and everything on the other side is Shakespeare's theater for my entertainment. Now, That sounds real simple, but once that concept is considered, all of a sudden you have choices that before you didn't have. This whole body of work that the Archangelics, Lords of Light, have taught basically show you how to recognize things called the Eye of Horus, which most people wear around their neck as a little necklace. It's a portion of the brain that, when reactivated, allows you to have an awareness into this consciousness that most people that listen to you are looking for relatively effortlessly. There is something called the living light body, but in order to get there, you have to put the mental and the emotional body back together, because it was always meant to be one, not two. When you start to recognize you have things like access to the color coding system, to calm the nervous system, to alter the emotions that aren't yours, all of a sudden you become educated and knowledgeable in how to discern a life that you would like to create. That's what Mastering Alchemy is.
Absolutely. And what I like about what you do as well, you give away a lot of free information on your website, and your website is
masteringalchemy.com.
Yeah, you've got some.
We teach
Yes.
tools. We give you a set of 10 tools. Do this. I may never see you or hear from you, but if you do this, you're going to find your ability to navigate your life so much easier.
Yes, I think they're called the essential tools, aren't they? Yes, on the website. Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, we're linking all that up right now, and your books as well. I just want to cover just very briefly, because there's so much we could talk about here, but just going back to the conspiracies and everything else. For me, I would never cover conspiracies again. I just don't do it. To me, there's never a solution. It's all fear-based. And, if you want to change the world, I keep it kind of simple. Look at improving and changing yourself to begin with. Yeah. And I think, I do like the whole, ufology scene, but to me, the ufology scene is moving over to consciousness. It is moving over to, people are now channeling ETs and everything else. But there is that part of me that thinks, well, and I think it was Jeffrey Hoppe, when I interviewed him recently, did say as well to me, well, what if an ET's never lived a human life, why should we listen to something that's never had a human existence? I'm not saying that's what he said, but it was something around those words. I'm personifying it quite a bit there.
Yeah. Well, let's look at it this way. Let's decide all the conspiracies are accurate. Let's decide they're all accurate. So one of the things, again, about people get in conspiracies is the structuring is us and them, third dimension. And we believe this, and this is true, and those others don't, and they're trying to hide it and cover it up. And so you get all wound up in the emotions and the fears and the trying to defend. And how did your life go? Well, I spent 30 years trying to defend their UFOs, in fact. Well, how was that for you? How'd that work out? Let's decide there are UFOs. Let's decide there are conspiracy theories. Let's decide all those strategies of choice for yourself, or is it just I'm now part of another group and I feel connected? If it's connection you're looking for, terrific. Be connected, and be connected and enjoy what you're doing rather than fighting or proving. Now, and then there's aspects of some of those stratas, David Icke's works, for example, people get really wrapped up in that. But how does that feel in your body when you start dealing with that level of conspiracy and fear? For me, I read one of those books. It took me about 6 days to get the energy out of my space. Because what you're really saying is, I agree with this. I like this. This must be a truth. Well, as soon as you start to get into that energy gets into you. Now, there's nothing good or bad about that. Is that what you want to wear around all day? So if you accept that all these things are real, operating in different stratas of vibrational consciousness, is that where you wish to play? Is that really where you wish to experience yourself? And when you begin to ask that question, you have to then begin to take a look at, who am I? What am I about? And many of the times at that point, what you really run into, again, is the mom, dad, teacher, minister who said to you when you were 4 years old, you're not okay. And so we're constantly avoiding dealing with I'm not okay.
Yes.
And so we move into a box that says, yes, it's us and them, and I'm going to, carry the flag and basically take on those conspiracy
Yes.
theories because that's why I'm not okay.
Yep. So true.
And
So true. So true, because I just want to say that, when I spoke to David Icke and interviewed him, I remember, mentioning about that I started channeling and that, what did he think about some of the materials there, because I was trying to get him to come back to that space of love again. If he's going into consciousness now, which he talks about, let's talk about that side of it. But he didn't want to know. He felt like a lot of the channels was, not very good information, and he wouldn't put his he was all about, we have to raise the awareness that these things are happening. But as you say, that creates the awareness of the reality then, doesn't it, as well? So
it does, and good for him. He's really clear about his
yes.
belief. I'm not making anybody
Yep.
good or bad. It just, is that an energy, I'm saying to the
Sure,
people who are
sure.
following or looking, is that an energy that you are really comfortable with running through your body? And it may be, and that's terrific.
Yeah.
But discern and understand where you are, and is that really how you wish to live your life? And some people get into causes, and I'm all about this cause. Terrific. Just be clear about what you're about, and does it feel good in the body, and is it giving you a comfortable sense of moving through your
Yeah,
life?
and I think if it is, then that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing if it is. And there's many good things to put your time to as well, most definitely. We all come down here for different reasons, don't we? It seems to be. And, none of us can judge anything, but we can, through teachings like yourselves, come to a different perspective and different understanding of it that just allows us to see a great big vastness of ourselves by doing that as well, and that there is always a way forward. So just going back to law of attraction as well. So if someone is feeling, that they are not worthy, not lovable, I've got no money, or, whatever fear it may be, too sensitive, whatever it may be, right? How do they move from that space of not eliminating them, but transforming those feelings into something that's going to get them into the place where they really want to be?
Well, if you can create a new truth, you will override an old truth. So the challenge is, when the mom, dad, teacher, minister of life have handed me all these gifts, you're not okay, you're not attractive, you don't fit. One of the things that I say consistently is understand that's a gift. Now, it's not a very nice gift, but somebody said, here, I don't like you. What we do is we accept it as 4-year-olds, 5 years old, 17-year-olds. We don't understand why you don't like me. But what we do naturally is we accept it, and then we immediately ask the question, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? Why is this happening to me? So immediately you put your law of attraction attention point right on something that never was yours, but you start to make it yours. So the thing about that is you can never answer that question. What's wrong with me? The primary reason is nothing is wrong with you. You can't be not okay. But what you can do is you can put on a lot of these coats and shirts and hats that say, you're ugly, you're not okay, you're not smart. And then wear them around. It's like wearing a pair of shoes that are 3 sizes too small. They never feel good. The reality is they never were yours. So the question you're asking is, how do you step out of that? Now, in Mastering Alchemy, what we basically say is we start talking about thoughts and emotions and words, which is the fundamental of everything. But if I said to you, do you know what certain is? Ever been certain? A person intellectually says, oh yeah, I know what certainty is, I've been certain. But if I said to you, take a breath and close your eyes, and would you feel certain? Oh, that's very different. All of a sudden the body sits up, there's an alignment, you take a breath, and there's a feeling. How do you like that feeling? It feels nice. What if you could create a platform of words like certain, happy, seniority, this is who I am, and not worry about mom, dad, teacher, minister, just basically begin to create a platform of certain, capable, happy.
Yeah.
And we're not proving it, we're just feeling
Yes.
it. Once you begin to create that platform, the ability to start to have a place to go to then observe what's wrong with me is very different, because you've stepped out of what's wrong with me. And then letting what's wrong with me go begins to be a relatively easy
Absolutely,
process.
absolutely. So, someone coming to your work and going through the alchemy as well, process with yourselves, and taking some classes, how are they going to be transformed? If someone's listening to this right now and they're like, "Well, what kind of different person am I going to be at the end of all this?" Then,
What if you just liked yourself? What if you really could say, in fact, I say to people in the work, we do kind of direction, meditation, if you call it, I say, just like yourself. I can't tell you how many people say, I don't know what that
wow.
means. Or they burst into
Yeah.
tears. I can't do that. Well, it's because of all the I'm not okay. So if you could just simply sit there right now and take a breath and close your eyes and just say, I like me and like you for no good reason. Once you begin to allow a set of feelings and alignments that are natural to you to be there, you begin to create choice. But when I'm holding this very ugly gift that
Yes.
says you're not okay, you don't have choice. You're trying to figure out, why do I have this? And you never answer that question, because it's not your challenge. It's not your problem.
No. No. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Um, Well, I suppose there's a lot of turbulent times the world's going through right now, and it's great as well, because it really is. It's allowing more for these type of conversations to happen, for sure. You
Yes.
must be seeing a massive shift. You've been doing this work for long enough now. You must be seeing an increase in something happening right now. There must be something in you that says, Christ, I really do see these subjects becoming more mainstream because of the things going on.
It is. But mostly the focus is on fear. See, the world is all going through the shift. Every single individual is going through it. Most are unconscious of being
Ah, yes,
unconscious.
yes, yes, yes,
That's how the average person walks on the
yes,
street. That's not bad or good, it's just a state of being. Where many people are beginning to experience in this themselves, this will sound strange, they're beginning to become conscious of being unconscious. Now, what that means is, all of a sudden, I'm not okay is beginning to come up into their conscious awareness. It's all leaving. It's all bubbling to the surface to be let go of. But when your stability, when your job, when your marriage, when your
yes,
relationships,
yes.
when your mortgage all of a sudden becomes a challenge to you, what the universe is saying, get out of that relationship, or there's a better job, or have you thought
Yes.
about these things that support you rather than the job you hate in the first place? What we do is you try to grab a hold of the job and try to make it be something important, that I can't lose my job. And all you do is you argue with the fear that's trying to leave. That's where the average person is in the world today. So building these platforms of well-being and stepping out of the waves of fear and beginning to navigate on your terms how you'd like to experience this is what is being presented. Now, Mastering Alchemy does that. But people that are listening to you right now are really starting to realize there's more. I want more. I can do this differently. I don't know how. And so the how to is kind of where we
Sure.
focus. But what is really important in the work of Mastering Alchemy, for example, is we are not talking to the average person. We're not even talking to the average spiritual seeker. We are definitely not talking to the people who are engaged in the conspiracy and trying to justify a particular
Yes.
point of view. Body of work where we're playing is providing the information of how to step into a fifth dimensional state of consciousness of well-being, being very masterful at your emotions and your
Yes.
thoughts, and being able to take your thoughts and turn them into a state of well-being that is provided for others to step into. And so building that living light body is very accessible. It's a journey. It takes some assembly required. It's not a free lunch. And it's all
Yeah.
about you letting go of your I'm not okay. And it's able to do that without a lot of struggle.
Do you struggle at all with coming from this space, knowing what you know as in your truth now, and the joy and freedom that you've got from what you're doing, and how the way you're helping people as well? Do you find it difficult just to mingle with someone that's just not in that space? Just going to the shop, just doing your normal thing. I mean, do you just see it just from love, and that everyone's where they're meant to be?
No, as I have stepped into this light body, as I experience myself in what we teach, the ability to see people where they are and recognize pain talks very loud, fear talks very loud. They are fine. And so my task as a individual and all that are stepping into that light body is to see a person where they are and be able to simply well, I heard they were hiring down the street. Maybe you should go look down there. You just lay something before them for them to choose to step out of the space that they're in.
Yes.
You don't take credit for it. You just simply assist people. And many times you do it with just a one-liner or just a compliment or a consideration where they go, oh, I never thought about that, and step away.
Right. So
that's the task. It's not fixing anybody. It's laying choice at their feet.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that. We're almost out of time here, so I'm just going to leave back to you now, really. We could have asked 1,000 other questions, right? And there's probably so much of your work still to come out, I would say, that's still not, there's an evolution of your work to come yet, I would say, as there is with most work in this field. What would you say is the most important message of your work then, up to date?
Well, identifying, let me point again to those free fundamental tools that are on the Mastering Alchemy website. See, if you don't have a sense of yourself, if you are worried in the past, worried about the future, hoping that instability, then you're really useless. You can't make a good decision in that chaotic moving back and forth. But those fundamental tools, people say, like, do you know how to ground? Well, people go, oh, sure. Well, no, you don't know. Grounding is where you allow all that electrical scattered thought in the body to simply siphon off, as well as emotions that aren't yours. Grounding with that second aspect of the grounding cord siphons off disabling emotions. When you discern where you start and stop, that's not quite true, but for this purpose, it allows you to have a stability. If you begin to move into present time, you begin to recognize you actually have choices. Those simple little concepts, all woven together, give you the opportunity to step off the train tracks as you're watching the train, rather than going, oh my God, what do I do? You have choice. But the average person doesn't have a stability in present time. And that's the single most important thing. That's why those tools are all free on masteringalchemy.com.
Absolutely. Well, we've been putting links to those tools, your books and everything else on the screens, because I think those tools were essential to talk about, and they really can help as well. And I just love that you give that away as well. I know you give as much as you can do away. That's an important part of your work as well. So thank you. Thank you so much for what you're doing in the world as well. It's, there's people that were waiting to hear this interview, I know. So you have helped them a lot. And I know that you do webcasts and everything else. So there's loads of ways to sign up and get lots of new info about what you're doing. So thank you so much, Jim, for coming on today.
Kevin, my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we've come to an end on today's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews by going to The More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on our past and upcoming guests via themoreshow.com, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.